I wanna shoot, baby.
Last Friday, the world was blessed with a long-awaited crossover between Deadpool and Wolverine in, well, Deadpool and Wolverine. Now, I'm writing this before I actually go see the movie itself, so if you'll give me a hot minute.
1 hour later.
Alright, we're saving that video once it comes out on digital. Anyways, but you're not here to listen to me talk about the definitive Deadpool movie and how I believe most Marvel movies should be now. You're here for our itty-bitty Canadian with anger issues and sharp claws. Logan is regarded as one of the best Wolverine movies or superhero movies ever created. It was a beautiful send-off to one of Hugh Jackman's biggest and most iconic roles of his career. Now, as we all know, in Logan, Charles allegedly killed the entire X-Mansion as he was having a seizure. I could go into detail on how this happened after years of being in complete control of his powers, but we can all agree that it was dementia. With this in mind, you're probably thinking the same thing as all of the other people watching this video. Where the fuck was Magneto? Magneto is a prevalent character in the X-Men stories and in the Marvel Universe, more so in the Fox X-Men universe. Him and Charles were basically the divorced dads of the mutant race, and they made it everyone's problems. Joke stolen from somewhere else on the internet. So, it only makes sense to have him be the first person to know what Charles Xavier did in the X-Mansion and be the first person to come to his friend's side to find some way to dampen his powers and to lessen the effects of dementia on them. But no, for some god-awful reason, he's nowhere to be seen the entire film. Most people will take the, oh, he probably died along with the people in the mansion, or they were probably fighting during a mission when Charles had a seizure, thus killing him and even other mutants except Wolverine. Well, sure, and some people even say that he died of old age. Okay, I get that, but I feel like that's the easy way out. If you've been on this channel for the past 12 videos, you know that we love making some dumb theories mostly based on observation, bare minimum research, and absolute boredom and daydreaming. Magneto can be irrational and emotional most of the time, but still, he can be really smart when he wants to be. So why on God's green earth was he not in the movie? Well, you could say Fox just didn't want to spend a pretty penny on Ian McKinley, but hey, that's just me. I just know that Fox likes to cut corners most of the time, but I'll leave that out of the equation. Today's cult meeting, we're going to be discussing what I think Magneto did during the events of Logan or before the ends of Logan and why he's not in the film at all. Most of you are probably going to say, oh, but he's powerless in The Last Stand. Oh, he doesn't have his powers in The Last Stand. That doesn't count. Well, remember the events of Days in Future Past. Events did change, which technically means The Last Stand didn't happen. And all things considered, the teaser for Days of Future Past and the mid-credits scene for Wolverine shows him having his powers. So technically speaking, Last Stand was basically a filler, and Magneto has his powers, so suck it, we're going with this. I have a gut feeling that he was already informed about what happened to the X-Mansion, what happened to the kid mutants there, what happened to the X-Men, or what happened to the majority of the X-Men, and from there, I feel like he would have two options. Genosha is a small island, I'd like to call it a country because it's populated, owned by Magneto. Apparently, he had persuaded the human government to give them that island in order to be isolated from the humans that really don't like mutants for some reason. Mutants are really cool. I don't know why humans in the Marvel Universe really don't like them. Anyways, Genosha, from my knowledge, is an isolated continent where mutants can live freely under Magneto's rule. Mutants from all around the world will either be brought here or they go willingly. According to the Marvel Wiki, Magneto, with the support of the United Nations, officially took control of Genosha from its human oppressors and turned into a claim to be mutant safe haven, promised island, and a mutant utopia. At its heights, Genosha was a home to almost the entire mutant population on Earth. Now I think it would only make sense to have Magneto gather the remaining mutants in the world and gather them in Genosha. Now there's just another theory going around in my friend circle that maybe, just maybe, Professor X was actually using Cerebro when he had his first seizure, which makes much more sense if you ask me, because it only makes sense to have him on Cerebro and how he was able to wipe out all of the mutants in one fell swoop. It only makes sense, because in the movie, according to Logan, they're the only mutants left. Now, it's a far reach that Charles could actually kill all of the mutants in one fell swoop using Cerebro, but hey, it's comics, anything can happen, and the movies can happen, and it was very heavily implied in the third act of the movie. But then again, there is a weakness to Charles's telepathy, and that is Magneto's helmet. Of course, this could be generalized to any metal helmet in general, which I think makes Eric's helmet less special, because why doesn't everyone just get a metal helmet or something while fighting the X-Men? Now, I don't know how Eric could pull this off, but I think he could either create a magnetic force field around Genosha that would most likely be a one-time thing, but it's permanent, so he doesn't have to always be laser focused all the time, or have a mutant engineers or probably magicians or magic users that are also mutants by chance build a machine that could harness or mimic his powers, again, magic and engineering, to do the force field instead. I haven't read enough X-Men comics to know if it's really the helmet or just pure magnetism. It's most likely the helmet, because that's basically proven, because Juggernaut's helmet is also immune to Charles's telepathy or any kind of telepathy, but that's another point. But I'd still like to believe that it's actually the magnetism that makes Charles's telepathy weak against Magneto. Because if it was just a regular old helmet that he always has on his head, why not just have a bucket on his head every time? That's basically what it is. It's a fancy ass bucket on his head. I just love to think that magnetism is one of the few to no weaknesses of Charles Xavier, because it only makes sense. Magneto having a magnetic force field around that helmet just makes it so much more special, and why not share that to Genosha to shield all of them from a seizing Charles Xavier? Some of you may think that this theory is a little bit out there because we haven't seen a massive anti-telepathy field before in the X-Men universe, I think. Neither have we seen it in comic format as well, I think. But realistically, I think Magneto could pull this feat off, as again, he isn't just limited to being a massive magnet. He can literally move tectonic plates if he wanted to. It's because everything is made of metal, and it's literally embedded in the soil. This was very prevalent in X-Men's Age of Apocalypse. Sure, he may have had his powers amplified by Apocalypse, but we all saw his potential at its fullest. It doesn't even need to be a magnetic force field. He could just have a metal dome surrounding Genosha and that would suffice. But then again, sunlight and all the resources, they want to see the blue sky, so I think a magnetic force field would still be a good idea. I feel like Genosha is being protected by some kind of magic, or a magnetic force field again, would make the most sense in terms of preserving the overall population of mutants. Because option B is way too out there and inconvenient for most mutants. Remember that automaton video I did a while back discussing on how I think a specific political figure of war was hiding out on the moon and is secretly creating the automatons to control the universe? Yeah, well, I'm doing it again, but this time it makes so much more sense. According to the Marvel Wiki, again, Asteroid M was a moon base created by Magneto when he was forming the Brotherhood of Evil. This is taken directly from a comic, but since we're going on a movie-by-movie logic, let's leave the I'll wipe out the entire human population in order to save my kind on my moon base part out of the equation, shall we? It was destroyed in a battle with the X-Men when Scarlet Witch sabotaged a button designed to kill the X-Men. Crashing off the coast of San Francisco, this Asteroid M was later brought into the surface by the X-Club under the orders of Cyclops, and became the New Mutants' homeland, Utopia. But considering the New Mutants are nowhere to be seen in any of the films, and are instead sitting at the bottom of irrelevancy because their movie was ass, let's stick to the moon base still being in space. There are 5 versions of this base because apparently Magneto is horrible at maintaining it in space without getting it blown up by the X-Men. But let's talk about an alternative version of this moon base from another Earth as a reference. On Earth 2149, also known as the Marvel Zombies Earth, it acts as a safe haven for remaining survivors of the superhero zombie outbreak. We can use this version of Asteroid M, not literally, that would be terrifying, as a reference on how it could have been used as a safe haven for most mutants after he catches word on what Charles had done. Say he built it in a span of a week or less, gathered the remaining mutants that were not affected by Charles' spaz out, and flew all of them to Asteroid M to keep them safe. Because even if Charles did use Cerebro again and accidentally have another seizure, the mutants on Asteroid M wouldn't be affected, because to my knowledge, Cerebro's range is only limited to Earth. That's at least my knowledge. Hey, if you have any more information about this, or if you have any input on this thought whatsoever, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. It actually helps out a lot on this channel. I feel like that this option is way more out there than option A. It's way more out there compared to just having Genosha protected by a magnetic telepathy dampening force field, but I still feel like it would be a very viable option. Think about it. Dementia, a brain-killing disease in the world's most dangerous mind. That is terrifying. If you were a mutant and you caught wind of the genocide that happened at the X-Mansion, wouldn't you want to get off the world as soon as possible? If you were a mutant and Magneto offered you a seat on a rocket he built 5 minutes ago on a one-way trip to Asteroid M to save the rest of mutant kind, you wouldn't take it? Again, this is an option that is on a much larger scale compared to Genosha. So, which one is more likely to have happened during or before the events of Logan? Don't get me wrong, both options are definitely something I see Magneto doing in the Marvel Universe. Both versions of him, of course, but considering Genosha was already established in the Fox Universe, I'm going to have to go with that compared to the latter. I feel like Magneto would have known what have happened over at the X-Mansion. Again, gathering the remaining mutants all over the world, it would probably take a week or a month or two, most likely a week considering its mutant population, that were not affected by the genocide and sealed them off from Charles' telepathy and Cerebro. The remaining mutants on Earth, all concealed from one of the most dangerous minds on Earth. And here's the kicker. Logan states that there weren't any natural mutants in the past 20 years, naturally born, none for 20 straight years, which, a little spoiler for Deadpool and Wolverine, turns out to be false because Deadpool and the X-Men are still alive, which is, we'll talk about that after Deadpool and Wolverine comes out in digital, so not all of us will be spoiled, so I'm just leaving you out there. But it's to believe that Magneto, with the help of magic users and some mutants on Genosha, has concealed the continent of Genosha so well to the point when Charles tried to find other mutants in the world for the past 20 years prior to the events of Logan, he loses all hope and thinks his best friend killed every last mutant on Earth. Or maybe they thought they were just hunted down by the government. That seems to be a trend in the X-Men universe. Either way, it's really, really depressing. This means, for the longest time, Magneto has kept his island secret for the past 20 years and concealed it from Logan and Charles to the point where they think they were the only mutants left on Earth. And from there, I'm sure all of you know what happened to Logan and Charles in the film. It was not only cruel to hide the mutants from your best frenemy and make them feel like they were alone in the world again, but a very smart one too. To not only save your kind from extinction, but to also preserve the memory of the mutants that came before them, Brotherhood of Evil or not, or X-Men. Because mutants, they're not immortal, excluding some like Wolverine and Deadpool and some others that I might not know of. They age like the rest of us, proving that they're as human as you and me. And with aging comes its debuffs. And eventually, death. Who knows? Maybe Magneto had a similar incident when he was on his deathbed. Maybe he had a similar incident exactly like Charles. But instead of telepathy, his magnetism could have spiked so much he either killed everyone with shards of metal or worse. Let's not forget, we have iron in our bodies. God only knows what a Magneto that is having a seizure can do when he can't control his magnetism. This was already seen in, I think it was X-Men Last Stand, where he breaks out of prison using someone's iron in their blood and he turns them into like floating metal balls. That was awesome. And could you imagine what he could do if he was seizing and he had no control over his powers? So many theories, but such little time to know what the Master of Magnetism is up to, while his best friend withered away and eventually killed by a clone of one of his closest students. But that's all I got for you in today's episode. What are your thoughts about Magneto's whereabouts in the events of Logan? You think he's a deadbeat dad? I think he's a deadbeat dad. We are just a little over 400 subs away from 1,000 subscribers, so I'm definitely going to be uploading as much as I can during vacation, and I got a gut feeling that I'm going to be binging a lot more than I usually do, and it's going to be horrible. But if you enjoyed, leaving a like would be awesome, and it helps the channel a lot. It gets the video out there, and subscribing will keep you up to date on the latest cult meetings. That's all from your boy. I hope you have a wonderful day, and in case I don't see ya, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.